guys, so today I'm going to be going through the English poem Assassination. I'm going to read the lines of the poem and then explain the meaning behind each of them. So the first two lines say, "It was wild, the bullet hit high." The word wild in the first sentence indicates that the scene is chaotic, as you can imagine with an assassination. We begin the first and the second sentence with a lowercase letter, which shows that the poem starts in the middle of a sentence. This emphasizes the chaotic nature of the scene. This comparison to the scene makes us feel as though we have been dumped into the middle of a chaotic assassination. So basically the writer is trying to make the reader feel as though we've been dumped into the middle of an assassination, just like this poem has started in the middle of a sentence. So the next line is the throat neck, and it's in parentheses. This is used to place emphasis on where Martin Luther King Jr. was shot and the sinister nature of it. So this whole poem is about Martin Luther King Jr. and his assassination. All these words that are in the poem are used to describe the chaotic nature of the scene and how vulgar and wrong his assassination was. So that's why this word throat neck stands on its own, to create like a very vulgar image of where he was shot and how cruel his attack was. There's many random places mentioned in the next couple lines. So the motel, under the cars, around corners. This is to create an image in our heads of many people running around, appearing from nowhere, just to create like a very chaotic scene in our heads. So the tone or the mood of this part of the poem would be distressed due to the chaotic nature that is described using all these words, using the random places mentioned, throat neck, wild, the poem starting in the middle of a sentence. So the next few lines say, "They came running, with guns drawn, they came running." They is an ambiguous reference to the police. Ambiguous means that we are referring to someone or something, but without specifically saying so. So over here they say they, but we know that they are talking about the police. Then we have toward the king. King is spelled with a capital letter, which indicates that we are talking about a specific king, which is Martin Luther King Jr. The capital letter just indicates that we are talking about a specific person and not just any king in general. Then it says all of them fast and sure. This indicates that the police, because the fast and sure are the adjectives that are describing the police, these words indicate that the police have the relevant expertise required to be skillful policemen and do their duty accordingly. As if the king was going to fire back, they came running, fast and sure, in the wrong direction. So over here it says that, well, in the previous slide it said that the police were skillful and that they were well equipped in their job, using the adjectives fast and sure. But here it says that they were running as if to the king, as if he was going to fire back and in the wrong direction, which indicates that the policemen were running towards the king instead of the person who shot him, or instead of even trying to find the person who shot him. This places emphasis on the stupidity and the racism of the police. Basically, it's saying that the police were running towards Martin Luther King Jr. because he was black and they suspected that his assassinator could have been white. And that may be one of the reasons why they did not try to go find his assassinator. Now we're just going to talk a bit about the structure and language of the poem. The layout of the poem is irregular, which is used to place emphasis on the chaotic moments following the assassination. This layout adds to the chaotic nature of the poem because it's irregular, and that emphasizes everyone running around, moving around. Nobody's going in a specific direction. There is no order to the people's movements during the assassination. The title is a single word. It is Assassination. By using one single word as the title, it evokes quite a lot of emotion because we all know what an assassination is. And by standing by itself, it's very harsh, it's powerful, and it gives context to the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. It's telling us what happened to him. The tone of this poem is urgent and disconnected, which is used to create the scene of the chaotic assassination in our heads. The lines are not aligned properly, which emphasize the confusing and sudden nature of the assassination, which we said there is an irregular line pattern. It is used to create an image in our heads of everyone running around, very distressed, no order. The use of the word wild in the first couple lines describes the scene. The fact that this poem starts in the middle of a sentence, that all is connected to the tone. There are many short sentences used to emphasize the abrupt and fast-paced nature of the poem as well. In the previous slide, we spoke about the police being described as fast and sure. The repetition of these adjectives emphasizes that the police are well trained and are able to catch the assassin, but by saying that they ran straight at Martin Luther King Jr. and they were running in the wrong direction, this repetition is actually used to mock them because they did not protect all races equally. They were running in the wrong direction to Martin Luther King Jr. instead of going to try to catch the assassinator. The meaning and theme behind this poem is one of racism and how government and police protection of all races was not equal. Martin Luther King Jr. was a black man who supported equal rights for all races. This was the man who was assassinated. The police were said to have gone after the king once he was shot, instead of his assassinator or instead of trying to find his assassinator, which is why they were running in the wrong direction. If they were running in the right direction, they would have been running around trying to find his assassinator. The speaker mocks the police by saying they ran towards the king as if he was going to fire back, as if he was like the assassinator and the bad guy, which obviously he couldn't because he was dead. The fact that they did not run after the assassinator could indicate that they did not want to find him, as he may have been a white man who did not want equal rights for all races, and they agreed with him. Martin Luther King Jr. was a black man who supported equal rights, so the reason that he was probably targeted and assassinated was because somebody, probably a white man, wanted him killed because they didn't agree with what he thought and they wanted to be seen as superior to black people or people of color. In the previous slide, we saw that the police were described as fast and sure, which means that they are skillful. They were good policemen that could catch killers, and they knew how to. Therefore, it was not their physical incompetence that stopped them from catching the assassinator, but the fact that they were racist and did not want to catch the assassinator because they thought that he may have been a white man, and that's why he killed Martin Luther King Jr., and they agreed that all races should not be treated as equal, that white people should be superior to people of color. Therefore, they didn't want to catch him, they didn't want to catch the assassinator, because they actually agreed with his opinions, and they didn't agree with Martin Luther King Jr., which highlights the fact that the government and police did not protect all races equally. They actually protected and favored white people, even if they were wrong.